Well, we are excited to be able to come at you today. We're going to be doing some interactive coaching. We're going to provide some opportunities for those of you who would like to ask questions about growing your lifestyle entrepreneur business or achieving extraordinary results in life and in the workplace. We're going to be just doing some Q&A today. Jim and I wanted to keep it casual. It's the first day of the month. We thought we'd end up sharing some feedback, answering some questions, and just having a lot of fun, because that's what living an extraordinary life is all about, right, Jim?
It certainly is. By the way, I have coming up this week a meeting with one of my clients, and they want me to sit down with the executive team and talk about how to better use their executive time, because they find themselves getting bogged down in unnecessary meetings and doing a lot of committee work that ought to be done by individuals or small groups instead of the main group. And that stimulated me to write some articles. So I wrote an article on what's the highest and best use of your time. Another one on how do you make meetings productive and how do you ruin them and cause them to be unproductive. And another one on decision making. I had the privilege years ago of co-authoring or collaborating, I guess is more accurate, with Dr. Spencer Johnson on a book called Yes or No, The Guide to Better Decisions. And Spencer's better known for the books, The 1 Minute Manager with Ken Blanchard and Who Moved My Cheese, but came up with some pretty powerful stuff. So just thinking about my next assignment, that meeting with my consulting meeting with my client, caused me to think out loud on paper and create a multiple value with a single work effort. So I created 3 articles. They're specific to one magazine that I write for pay, but I can take that same article, treat it differently, and publish it in other publications. I can also take those 3 articles and use that as the notes for my upcoming consulting assignment. And one of those articles, the one on meetings, will be a nice addition piece to my next book, which is going to be what to do when you're the meetings leader. So, there's just a little multitasking by doing one task idea. And the whole thought there is that multitasking is a dysfunctional concept. No one can do multiple activities at once. They can rapidly switch between activities. You can juggle lots of things at one time, but each time one ball is in your hand, there's only one ball in your hand. When you throw it up in the air and you catch another ball, that's another ball. That's not the same one. You're not multitasking, you're micro-tasking, like that. When I'm playing a guitar, when I strum a chord, actually I'm strumming 6 separate notes. But they're all happening so close together that it seems like they happened at the same time.
Well, as lifestyle entrepreneurs, the people that are watching this show are oftentimes in that juggling act. They're trying to do the micro tasks, and they're trying to do all the things that really matter. And sometimes it gets a little bit overwhelming. And so the idea of actually concentrating on the things that are the ones that really move the business forward is the constant battle for a lot of us. So in your best coaching, Jim, if you were to, maybe kind of bring it down to 1 or 2 things that lifestyle entrepreneurs should really be focusing in on, especially in those early stages of growing and developing to take business to the next level, what's the 1 or 2 things you focus on?
2 things. Measure and record, like on a wall chart or somewhere obvious and blatant to you. Every single day, put a notation, how many new people did I talk with today who could say yes to buying from me? How many new people did I talk with today who could say yes to buying from me? Doesn't matter what you talked about, how many did you talk with who are new to you? It doesn't count if you call up your friend or your existing client and have a quick little conversation with them and check something off. So number 1, how many new people who could say yes to buying from me did I talk with today? And second, how many of those conversations were about how I could help them for pay? How many of those conversations were about how I could help them for pay? You measure those two things, you'll get better at those two things. You measure those two things, keep a running record of them, the numbers will increase over time because you'll put more energy into it. What we measure, we tend to improve. What we measure, we attend to. What we measure, we feel accountable for. So just that measure alone could transform your whole business.
That's a great answer, Jim. And, that leads to another question that has to do with just the fact of, having different times of the day or having different days of the week or days of the month to really go after those things that bring you the most value. Because there's a lot of lifestyle entrepreneurs that have a lot of service work, and they're actually fulfilling the work, whether it's a speaker that books a lot of gigs and then begins to have to fulfill those gigs. And so some days don't necessarily have, all days aren't created equal. There are certain days that maybe have a little more planning, a little more preparation, other days more execution. Some days just need to be free days. Talk a little bit more about kind of schedules you've seen out there in the marketplace that really do well for different kinds of people.
Years ago, Earl Nightingale talked about separating, or not separating, but noticing the separation of the actions that you do in a given day and making a note as to which ones were goal achieving and which ones were tension relieving. Sometimes we do an activity which is work related and it counts, but it's really not moving the ball forward. And we need to make the distinction, which ones of the activities that I'm doing actually lead to an increase in success for me, and which ones are supportive activities to that could be delegated to software, to another person, to an app, to a different time of day or time of week when our time is less critical. When business doors are open and telephones are active and people are at their desks or paying attention to the marketplace, that's optimum selling time. That's optimum serving time. That's time when we could be doing something that generates revenue. If we use that time to do activities that could happen at any time and it wouldn't matter, then what we're doing is we're spending $100 time to do $10 activities. And we end up wasting a lot of our opportunity that way. So that's a big item right there. Another thing is notice which hours of the day are your prime time. I'm a morning person. I am way better in the morning at creativity, at productivity. Later it gets in the day, the more I kind of lose the edge or the momentum that I might have had early in the morning. So in the mornings, I don't want to start the morning listening to TV or the radio. I want to start the morning with a fresh mind focused on the priorities that matter in my world. And I want to spend those first few hours doing the things that will make the biggest difference for me. So before other people are up and at their desks, I'm sitting and thinking. I love to go to breakfast alone early in the morning and sit there with a notepad and just focus on whatever my mind is most interested in focusing on that has value. And then when I engage, in other words, start making phone calls, answering emails, contacting clients, serving people, whatever, then, I want to make sure I'm at my best doing the things that matter the most. So it's a matter of just knowing how to differentiate between the two, and most people don't. It's like my son, when years ago, he came to me. He said, "Daddy," he's 46 now, but back then he said, "Daddy, can I have my own money?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, my friend gets an allowance, and I'd like to get an allowance." I said, "Well, there's two types of allowance. One is the parents just give you money. And that doesn't really teach you anything, and it doesn't mean much. It's just a convenience. And the other kind of an allowance is where we figure out what you need money for, and we allocate money for that. And you learn to use your money wisely so that when it's used up, you don't run out of things you need money for, and end up with not enough money to do it. He said, huh? He was too young. So I said, okay, first thing we're going to do is I'll come up with an amount that I'm willing to give to you each week. And we'll see how that goes. But I want you to keep a record every single day, no exceptions, of the money you spent on things that you keep and the money you spent on things that are gone. He said, what do you mean? I said, if you buy a sandwich, that's things that are gone. If you buy a book, that's a thing that you get to keep. He said, oh. He said, what if I go to a movie? I said, that's things that are gone. He said, but I remember. Yeah, I said, yeah, I get it. You remember the movie. That doesn't count. Tangible versus intangible. Real and lasting. Emotional and not lasting, or at least not in the same way. He said, okay. So we did that for a while. And then we got more specific and we drilled down over the years. He had that budget plan for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years at least. And we kept getting more and more sophisticated with it each time and started budgeting in advance and all that. And he became pretty darn good at recognizing what money lasted and what money didn't, where money came from and where money went. So he knew his own patterns. Do that same thing in your own business.
Jim, another question from the Extraordinary Lifestyle Entrepreneur Group is the idea of just understanding when to potentially give up on a business dream or business goal that just doesn't have a business plan or a good solid business plan. Because, they say don't ever give up, don't ever give up. But there's times when you don't have a good solid plan, you don't have a good solid support system, you don't have enough cash, there's just times when you need to maybe quit doing it the way that you've been doing it and try it a different way. What would you say to a person that doesn't want to quit, but also maybe doesn't feel like they have the confidence to carry it all the way through?
Well, first off, you need to be careful as to how you invest your faith in your sources, expert sources. For example, the quote you just alluded to comes from Winston Churchill when he was speaking to the graduating class at Oxford or one of the schools in England. And he was an old retired man who was revered but was far past his prime. And they said, we'd like you to give some advice to the graduates. And so he walked up to the stage, took off his hat, set down his cane, adjusted his spectacles, looked over the microphone at the students, the graduates, and he said, never, 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 never give up. Not in small things, not in large things, never give up. Then he picked up his cane, put his hat on, and he walked off stage. Famous speech because of its brevity and its clarity. Now, is that good life advice? Sure. Is it good universal advice for all situations? Of course not. It's stupidly bad for some situations, right? I mean, if you're trying to open a door that is welded shut and you're trying to do it with only your hands, give up. It's not going to open until you get a tool to open it up. Find another way, right? Now, remember the source. The source was Winston Churchill. What's he known for? Advising, leading England in its darkest hour when they were about to be annihilated by Hitler's Nazi regime, okay? He said, never give up. What was he referring to? A business marketing effort? No. Existence on Earth, human life. He said, we'll fight you on the landing grounds, on the beaches, we'll fight you in the streets, we'll fight you anywhere. We will never, ever, ever give up. Okay, good. So they were choosing not to become slaves or corpses. They were choosing to stay alive. Good advice. When it comes to never give up on a piece of software that's way out of date, but you're so accustomed to using it, not such good advice. Give up on the software. There are better ways. There's an app for that. There's a new solution. So when you've got a goal that you've been working on, it's important to date the goal and to know how long you've been working on it. And then to be able to helicopter up to 30,000 feet occasionally and notice your pattern. Have I been really putting my nose to the grindstone and dedicated to achieving this? Have I developed a plan? Have I tried different strategies and tried them long enough that they could have paid off? Or have I given up prematurely? You know, the vast majority of businesses that fail, the vast majority of businesses fail. Why? Because they stop too soon. People say, no, it's undercapitalization. Yeah, okay, you ran out of money by following the plan only to the point where it didn't pay off. And you didn't find new money sources. Yes, undercapitalized. Okay, the vast majority of businesses fail because the people gave up too soon. They were on a path that might have ultimately paid off, but they didn't stay the plan. J.B. Glossinger is a famous podcaster. I met with him at the National Speakers Convention a few weeks ago in Orlando. He is like number one on iTunes for podcasts. I mean, he has a huge following. He said for his first 300 podcasts, he didn't make any money at all. And then he got to where he had 40 people. And then the 40 went to 400, and now it's over 40,000. And the guy's a millionaire. And he lives in the US part of the time and in Colombia part of the time, Bogota, Colombia. And he's got a lifestyle that's enviable, and he's a very happy guy. And I don't even think he owns a suit. The guy shows up for work in his jeans or his shorts and just does his thing. He does a daily podcast, okay? But he didn't stop too soon. So I'm not saying stay the same plan. Just as long as that goal really matters to you, stay the effort and test your plan constantly and be willing to give up on the parts of it that don't work. If you're not getting any payback at all, any feedback that says this is the way, then consider alternatives. And while you've still got your foot on that solid ground, search with your other foot for a stepping stone to go to the next spot. It's kind of like when people say, I want to be a professional speaker. I want to do what you do. Great. Don't quit your day job. Start doing speeches for free. Then start charging if you've got value to offer, and see what charges will be supported by the marketplace. And when your speaking business starts interfering with your other business, then consider shifting your weight to the new business. But until then, you need the existing support and security to be able to sustain your lifestyle as you go towards your new goal.
Great answer, Jim. And for those of you that just joined us, we're talking to Jim Cathcart, one of the most recognized sales and marketing speakers in the speaker circuit. He's a Golden Gavel Award winner, best-selling author of 18 books. I'm working on his 19th book right now. And David Bush here alongside him just to kind of do a little hot seat interview on some hot coaching topics around lifestyle entrepreneurship and personal growth and development. Candy has a question in regards to what's a good allocation of time to spend on growing your business, growing yourself, and learning your craft? Is it a 40, 20, 40? What would you say would be, if you had your time allocated as 100% towards?
I would say 100, 100, 100, and occasionally 0, 0, 0. I think it's really important once in a while that we back up and look at ourselves. And I mean, like once a week or once a month at least, that we back up and look at how we're using our time and energy and see how much of our time is going toward growing the business, how much of it is sharpening the axe, and learning your craft, and how much of it is growing yourself as a person. And sometimes it needs to be 100 on one of those, and the other two just get neglected for the moment, or at least put on pause, but not actually neglected. Neglect indicates ongoing decay. So if you're regularly checking yourself, you'll make good decisions on that. it's important that you be the one that's driving that. And it might help to just set up a regular reminder, make an appointment with yourself to do a monthly self-check and see what your ratios are. And again, tracking it on a wall chart or some visible thing that you're going to see all the time, whether you choose to or not. Noticing in March, it was 60, 40, 30. In another, it was 10, 12, whatever. I'm not trying to worry about adding up to 100. You just look at the percentages and see the patterns. Because your land of opportunity lives just that far past your existing habit patterns. Your growth will always take place as a result of some change in your habit patterns, some enhancement of one of those areas, some advancement of one of those skill sets, some breakthrough in your knowledge or awareness or understanding of something. So look at your habits regularly and make sure that the habits you have formed and the ones you're embracing are the ones that will lead you to the future you want to have.
Another question that we had, Jim, I was looking at the chat feature there, just in terms of spousal relationships. So let's say you have a spouse who's maybe not as committed to this idea of living the entrepreneurial life where you're working only half days, right? Picking each 12 hours.
12 hours, yeah. That's an excellent question, by the way, because so many people can relate to that. Go ahead. You want to get more specific with it?
Yeah, just in terms of, trying to win them over on, casting the vision of what life will be like, even when, maybe that's promises have been broken before, or there's been a lack of, activity when there was a promise that was made that activity would be done. What would you say to that person?
Well, I would say, first off, we need to recognize for a relationship to be genuinely healthy and successful, there are three essential elements. Both parties must be committed to the success of the relationship. Now, that's always heavier on one side than the other side. One person is always more committed to the success of the relationship than the other person, but that commitment excess should vacillate over time. If it's always only you who's committed to the success of this relationship, and I'm not talking about success, I'm talking about relationship success, then you need to re-examine how you've structured that relationship, and you need to have some really clear and probably difficult conversations. And there are books with recommendations on how to do that well, okay? Number one, both parties must be committed to the success of the relationship long term. Second, the truth has to flow freely. In other words, you must tell each other the truth even when it's bad news, uncomfortable, awkward, whatever. In other words, if you can't address your concerns, your fears, your emotions, then you don't have a relationship, you have a facade. You're hoping for a relationship, but you just have a facade, like a paint job, no car underneath, right? And so you've got to become okay with each other in admitting what the truth is. Okay, so that's essential number two. Number three, there need to be clear expectations. I need to know what you expect from me in this relationship, and you need to know what I expect from you in this relationship. And that's a negotiable thing. That's something where we, maybe my expectations are too high or even too low, and vice versa. So we need to clarify that. And the same thing applies on the job. When you hire someone or are hired by someone, you need to commit, both of you, to the success of this relationship. Otherwise, it's doomed. You need to tell each other the truth and find ways to let the truth go back and forth without it causing emotional explosions. And that's a learned skill. And there are courses on that and experts that teach it. And you need a very clear understanding as to what's expected from you and them. So like with my employees over the years, I've had what I call a role agreement. Here's what you're paid to do. For example, my executive assistant, my secretary in the old days, I would tell my executive assistant, here's what you're paid to do. Make me more productive. Period. Everything else is secondary to that. Now, you can't force me to be more productive, but you can certainly relieve me of duties that would make me less productive. You can keep my attention focused on the things I'm best at doing and not allow distractions by things that don't matter much. You can make small decisions for me and bring the larger decisions to me with the options already thought out so that I can get more quickly to the job. Your job is to make me more productive. Here's how you'll know if you're doing your job. I'll be more productive, period. Well, so my job is keeping an appointment. No. Your job is not filing, although you may do that. Your job is not appointment scheduling, although you may do that. Your job is not customer service, although you may do that. Your job is to assure that whatever you're doing ultimately causes me to be more productive because I'm the primary revenue generator for this business. Got it. Okay, that's your role. Here's your role description, 3 parts. Part 1, what you're paid to do, make me more productive. Part 2, your areas of responsibility. You're responsible for scheduling, filing, and I listed the areas. And you have the authority necessary to make decisions in those areas up to a certain point, and then you need to bring it to me. And then number 3, here are my expectations of you. I expect you'll show up at work on time without me having to call and remind you. You will be well-dressed and well-behaved for a business environment, suitable for that. So that means you won't be using profanity on the job. You won't be playing the radio loud at your desk or texting other people during your work day. I expect you to behave as a person who's being paid for what they're doing. When you're in your off hours or off moments during a break, I don't care. Just don't be obnoxious. All right? And use the resources here in the office efficiently, respectfully. Take care of your tools. Okay? Get along with the other people. In fact, make this a better place because you're here. Because if we have to give our energy to make you productive, you're detracting from the business, not adding to it. Now, what do you expect? And they would say, I don't know. I'd say, okay, let me help you start. You expect to get paid on time. Yeah. You expect that you can cash your paycheck on the day you get it. Yeah, that's good too. You expect that I'll be available to you almost anytime you need me. Yep. You expect to be able to get the information and education you need to do your job well. Yeah. Okay. Some things I will pay for your business education. Some things I expect you to improve on your own and spend your own time, money or energy to do so. Okay. I expect that you will resign the day before you lie to me. What? If you lie to me, I'll consider that your 2-week retroactive notice of termination. What do you mean? I mean, if you lie to me, you're fired immediately. Clean out your desk now, not later today, and go home forever. Oh, well, come on. No, I'm serious. If you lie to me. Now, it's okay if you tell me bad news. It's okay if you make a mistake and lose me money occasionally. It's okay if you did something really, really in bad taste and you genuinely are sorry for doing it and you're not going to do it again. Okay? It's okay if you screw up. It is not okay if you lie to me. If you call in sick and you're not sick, you're fired. If you call in happy and too happy to work and you want to take the day and go to the beach, if I can spare you, you get the day off. But don't ever call in sick if you're not sick. And the people would say, well, that's kind of blunt and mean. No, it's not mean. It's actually truthful. And it is blunt because it's telling each other the cold, hard facts about what we expect. So when we're that clear with each other, David, then everything else works. But when we say, well, a white lie is okay, what's the difference between a white lie and another lie? color. In other words, it's still a lie. And if I get information from you, I'm going to act on the information as if it's so. And if I'm acting on a lie, a half-truth, a veiled nicety of something that should be told more clearly, then I'm making mistakes and putting good energy to bad without even realizing it. So the one thing that will destroy a business above all other things is not telling the truth. So I think we need to make it an absolute rule, unshakable rule in our businesses. The truth is always the only thing that's okay. I had an employee come to me, a valued employee, come to me years ago and lied to me. And I didn't find out about the lie until later on. But when I found out about the lie, I called the person into my office and I said, "You're fired." And this person said to me, "Why?" And I said, "Because you lied to me." "I didn't lie to you." "Okay, because you lied to me twice in a row." "What do you mean?" And then I told him what I'd found out. And the person got very embarrassed and said, I'm so sorry. I said, "Me too, because I really loved having you here. So please clean out your desk. You're out of here." And so this person left the room, and about 30 minutes later came back in and said, "Could I speak to you for a second?" "Sure." And threw themselves on their sword and apologized profusely and said, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Please give me a second chance." So I did. And then I found out 3 months later that during the second chance, this person had been secretly calling other people on my dime to interview for job positions. And in each case was running me down and blaming me for the fact that this person was leaving. So the lying continued on a grander scale. And finally, I had to call the person in and say, "Excuse me, I just found out what you've been doing. And unless you intend to go to court with me real soon, where I will lay out every fact that is so in this, then I suggest you pack up and get out of here today." And that was the end of that relationship. And it broke my heart. I really, really enjoyed working with that person and miss having that energy in the office each day. But if you allow the lie to persist, if the person knows up front, first off, lying's never okay, and that's as serious as death, right? Then they know what rules they're operating by. And if you make an exception to that, I guarantee you it will come back and bite you. So how do you make things work? Tell the truth all the time, everywhere, to everyone.
Well, just the importance of honesty and the importance of good, clear communication. And if you have failed to represent yourself and the future success of your business to your spouse, it would be helpful to be able to have a honest heart-to-heart conversation and maybe have some apologies for misrepresenting what you thought to be the case. Because if you continue to promise and there's unfulfilled promises and constant sacrifice, it will only rob you of a healthy and happy relationship. Mm-hmm. And that goes not just for spouses, but also for employees. If you've promised the moon or promised the team, great rewards and recognition and opportunities, and the business just hasn't gone the right way, it's good to recap. And, I know, Jim, you've had employees just as much as I have, and team members that have stuck with you when things didn't go the way you wanted them, or when things went backwards. And those people oftentimes, were the ones that you celebrated with and gave. Right.
And I've had people, where they've made a mistake or they've done, there's a difference between making a mistake, which means you did it thinking it was the right thing and it turned out not to be the right thing. That's a mistake. Okay. If you do something mean-spirited, that's not a mistake. That's a stupid choice. That's a bad thing to do, right? But it's forgivable if there's trust in the relationship. If you genuinely are committed to the ultimate success of the relationship, then you can work those things out. Paula and I have been married 47 years this week. this week. And there have been times when we've hurt each other's feelings, when we've made each other terribly angry, when we've crushed each other's enthusiasm, when we've been rude or whatever. There have been times. But we were both committed to the success of the relationship, and so we repaired the damage and went on from there. By the way, Paula never dreamed of a business like mine. She never said, wow, I want to do that. But she saw that that was my dream and that I was fully committed to achieving my goal as a professional speaker and author and subject expert. And so she was supportive to me, but not supportive in the sense that she was my number one fan, my coach, my cheerleader and all that. It's just that she didn't cause me to not be able to do the things that were essential for me to do. She didn't interfere. I have a colleague whose spouse definitely did that and kept saying, well, when are you going to make more time for me? And that's a relationship issue. That's not a work issue, right? And so this colleague kept adjusting the time that he was committing to work and being very specific and very intentional about the highly productive hours and preserving those, but the others being very flexible and very attentive to his spouse. But it turned out she was so emotionally needy, he could have quit his job and spent full time trying to make her happy, and it never would have worked. So they ended up parting ways. So, both parties have to contribute to this.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Good thoughts. Well, for those of you who have not had a chance to download our free ebook over at theextraordinarylife.com, you can go over there and check that out and get some more great tips on how to continue to accelerate your results and pursue extraordinary success in life and in business. You can also visit cathcart.com for great courses, books, and resources, and also learn more about some of the coaching that Jim's doing and that we are going to be expanding upon. We hope that you will give us some feedback on the show today and give us a comment if you're watching this on Facebook, or if you've watched this online on our Facebook page. Please leave a comment. Let us know how we did and how we can serve you best in the future. Jim, thanks for joining us today and sharing your wisdom on behalf of Jim.
My pleasure. Thank you, David. Good job.
Yeah, you bet. Well, on behalf of Jim Cathcart and myself, David Bush, thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the very near future.
Thanks, folks. Bye-bye.